Good morning, everybody. So today is Thursday, February 4th, and we are on day 11 of Module 3 in Wit and Wisdom. Make sure that you have your knowledge and response journal out and ready. Go ahead and number pages 122, 123, and 124 for today. We're going to be working on our focusing question task. So if you want to go ahead and get your chart set up, put today's date on the top. This is focusing question task 11A. We're going to do an introduction statement today. We've already done our topic statement on page 120, but I want you to write it here and then put conclusion statement. And then on here, you're going to do your evidence in Dreams for Children and your evidence in Dreams for States, Nations. So go ahead and get your chart set up. So you can hit pause, get this written down, and then hit play. Okay, and our video is not very long today, so I'm going to go ahead and get it started. All right, and here we go.
Welcome back, incredible thinkers. I'm Sue Sabella, your Great Minds teacher. Let's see what we need for today. Today we'll need Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. Handout 9A, the response cards for the Dream Circle. And remember, that handout might be cut up and in your journal, or you may have the sentences from that handout written in your journal. We'll also need handout 11A, the introduction and conclusion organizer, your journal, and a pencil. Please pause here to gather everything that you need and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so you're not going to need handout 9A because on pages 114 and 115, I believe, let me check, yes. On pages 114, 115 in your journal, you chose 3 dreams for children and you chose 3 dreams for states and nation already. So you're going to be using those instead of the handouts. And we just created handout 11A, the organizer, in your journal on pages 122 and 123.
Today, we're going to revisit historical photographs, and we'll be getting set up for success for Focusing Question Task 2. You can follow along with me on the screen as we review Assessment 11A Focusing Question Task 2. If you'd like to pause to grab your own copy, please go ahead and do that and just hit play when you're ready to continue. First, let's take a look at the directions. You can read them out loud with me, or you can read them silently as I read them aloud. Here we go. Task: what was Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream for the world? Write an informative paragraph using 2 sources. Support your response using the following sources: I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King Jr., and the March on Washington for the introduction and concluding sentence. And the checklist for success reminds us what to include in the informative paragraph: an introduction, a topic statement, 2 pieces of evidence from 2 sources, and a concluding sentence. During the last lesson, you already selected your evidence and you generated or created a topic statement. So you're in really good shape to finish up the rest of the focusing question task. You've already generated a topic statement that tells the essential idea what the paragraph is about. Your topic statement answers the question for the focusing question task, and it will come near the beginning of the paragraph. You also gathered evidence from 2 sources, and that evidence develops the topic with information from the text. It also uses important points to support the topic statement, and your evidence will be in the middle of your informative paragraph. Today, you'll be working on an introduction. The introduction provides background information on the topic. It starts the paragraph and identifies the overall topic. You'll also create a conclusion. The conclusion reinforces what the paragraph is about. It may restate the topic statement, and it comes near the end of your informative paragraph. The checklist for success will remind you to include all of the parts of the informative paragraph, just like they are here on the informative writing anchor chart. If you do not have a copy of handout 11A, no worries. You can write your introduction statement and conclusion statement right in your journal, and we can put them in order so they're in order of an informative paragraph. If you'd like to use handout 11A and you have a copy of that available, please pause here to grab that now and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so we're actually going to stop right here because I just realized as I was looking at Miss Sabella's color-coded chart that I wrote something in the wrong place. We have the conclusion statement down here. We don't need that down here. We need it over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this out and try not to make too much of a mess here. Okay, I'm going to change that. Okay, so what I did was I whited out where man, why can't you see that? I whited out where I had conclusion, and I whited out dreams for the states and nation, and I'm just going to flip-flop them. I did it again. Oh my gosh, hold on. I'm having a rough afternoon, guys. Okay, so I'm going to write dreams for state, nation. Okay, so that is now our first piece of evidence. There we go. Dreams for states, nation. And then over here, I'm going to write conclusion statement. Over here on the bottom of page 123. Okay, so there we go. So if you wrote it already on your book, just like maybe put a line through it, or if you have whiteout or something, try to fix that. I apologize. I'm having a rough afternoon with this. This is the 3rd time I've had to redo this video. Okay, so now we have our introduction statement, topic statement, evidence, conclusion on our chart. All right, so we have introduction, topic, evidence, conclusion. That's the order it needs to be in. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to the video.
Let's take a look at the directions. The directions tell us to use the following pages for Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington to help you draft your introduction and conclusion statements. Let's begin with the introduction statement. And to create the introduction statement, we'll be answering the question, who was Martin Luther King Jr.? And we'll be rereading pages 32 through 34 to gather that information for your introduction statement. You have a choice, my friend. You can reread the pages from Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington and complete the organizer on your own, or you can follow along with me during my read aloud of these sections of that text. If you'd like to try it on your own first, please pause here and then hit play to listen to the read aloud. If you're continuing with me and the read aloud, let's get to it. I'm going to read pages 32 through 34 out loud. And remember, you have the power to pause me anytime you need to begin your introduction statement. Remember, you could take bulleted notes in the handout or in your notebook, and then later take those bulleted notes and turn it into a sentence. It's totally up to you. Ready? Here we go. The man's name is Martin Luther King Jr. He is a preacher and the son of a preacher. He has grown up in Georgia. He knows all about what it is like to be a Black person in the South. Dr. King is a man of peace, but he is also a fighter. He doesn't use his fists or weapons. He uses words. In the South, Dr. King has led many other protests. One was a march in Georgia. Another was a protest against a bus company in Alabama. He has been put in jail many times. Pause here to create an introduction statement or to listen again and then to create. Just hit play when you're ready to move on to the conclusion.
Okay, so we need to come up with an introduction statement. And since the question is asking what was Martin Luther King's dream for the world, if you're giving this to someone who doesn't know who Martin Luther King Jr. is, their first question is to be, who's Martin Luther King Jr.? So we need to tell in our introduction who Martin Luther King Jr. is. So who is Martin Luther King Jr., guys? Why is he important? So he was a preacher, right? And how did he fight against things that he thought were unfair and not equal? Did he use his fists? No, he used his words instead. So that needs to be in our introduction statement. We need to say that Dr. King was a preacher. Who used words instead of weapons. And since our whole question is about his dream for the world, where did he tell everyone about his dream? In the speech that he gave. So that needs to be in our introduction as also that he gave a speech about his dream for the world or the country. So our introduction statement is 2 sentences. Okay, so we said that Dr. King was a preacher who used words instead of weapons. He gave a speech about his dream for the country. That is the introduction. That, first of all, tells people who Dr. King was and where we are getting his dream from. Like, where do we hear his dream? Okay. And then if we look, I wrote on here page 120. We already have our topic statement on page 120. So what I want you to do is go to your page 120, and I just want you to recopy what we wrote. We wrote Dr. King's dream was for freedom to ring across the country. So we're going to write that on here. Okay. So we did our introduction, and we did our topic statement the other. So we've got our introduction statement and our topic statement. And our introduction statement needs to be in red. And I'm just going to put a box around it for right now because I want to be able to read words, and sometimes the lines get in the way. Okay. So the introduction statement is in red. What color is our topic statement going to be in? Green. So I'm going to put a box around the topic statement in green. All right. All right, now the next part is dreams for states, nations, and dreams for children. Now, you guys also already have this on page 114 and 115. Remember, we did this back on the 29th, last Friday. You were supposed to have 3 dreams for children and 3 dreams for the states and nation, and you were supposed to pick one of each. 1 dream for children, 1 dream for state nation. If you did not do that now. Pick the one that you want to write about for children and states and nations, okay? And then you're going to take whichever one you pick that you've circled, and you are going to write it here, okay? So if you chose the one that said all little black boys and black girls hands with little white boys and white girls. So you would write that here under dreams for children. Okay. If you chose the one that said for states nation that freedom will ring from the mountaintops of Pennsylvania or something like that, you would put under the states and the nations. These are your choices that you did. Okay. But remember, you're going to underline, you're going to put 1 in blue, or 1 in yellow and 1 in blue. Okay. 1 in yellow, 1 in blue. And now we're going to do our conclusion. Let's get back to the video.
Now I'm going to read pages 41 through 47 so you can gather information for your concluding sentence. I want you to keep this in mind. What impact did Dr. King's speech have? And as I read, I want you to keep that in mind. Ready? Here we go. When Dr. King finishes, there is silence. Then 250,000 people start to clap and to cheer. Some people are so moved by his words, they cry. People all around the world watch Martin Luther King Jr. on TV. So does President John F. Kennedy. By early evening, people start back to their cars, to the buses, and to the trains and planes. It is time to go home. The march has ended, but that is not the end of the story. 1 year later, a law is passed. It is called the Civil Rights Act of 1964. From now on, there cannot be restaurants for whites only. There cannot be separate seating for Black people and white people in any public place. People cannot be kept apart just because of the color of their skin. It does not change everything, but it is a beginning. And the power of words, the words of Dr. King and others, changes the law of the land. Pause here to scroll back on the timeline to listen again if you'd like, or to begin drafting your concluding sentence. Just hit play when you're ready to continue to the next part of our lesson.
Okay, so we need to come up with our conclusion. Hold on one second. I am writing down my evidence. Okay, so our conclusion, we are just wrapping up what we said in our topic statement. Okay, so our topic statement said that Dr. King's dream was for freedom to ring across the country. So how can we reword that? What was Dr. King's speech about? It was about bringing about changes, about how he wanted the country to be able to change so that freedom would ring across all the states and the country, so that little Black boys and girls could hold hands with little white boys and white girls and play and be equal with each other. So those were the things that Dr. King wanted to happen, and he was telling us about that in his speech. So our conclusion, we just need to reiterate the fact that Dr. King's speech was about his dream, and it helped bring about changes to the law. Okay, so we should say that Dr. King's speech about his dream helped bring changes to the laws. Okay, there we go. Dr. King's speech about his dream helped bring changes to the law. And I went ahead and went back and I added my evidence in for my example. Remember, this is my example. You don't have to have the same information as me in the evidence boxes. I would prefer that you don't. I want you to have your own. My writing is going to say freedom will ring from every state, and little Black boys and girls will join hands with little white boys and girls. Okay, so those are the two parts of your writing that are completely your choice. And because our conclusion is restating our topic statement, what color should we put a box around? Green. There you go. All right, so here's the dealio, guys. Everything that you need to write your focusing question task is right here. You have your introduction, you have your topic statement, you have evidence 1, you have evidence 2, and you have your conclusion. So when it comes time for us to finish our focusing question task, you have everything right here that you need. Okay? Now, if you want to put more than one piece of evidence in the boxes, I would love that. Like for mine, I could have put freedom will ring from every state, and we will transform our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. That would have been 2 pieces of evidence that I could have put in that chart. Okay. It would have made my writing more informational. So if you want to try to do 2 pieces of evidence, First Nations and states, and 2 pieces of evidence for children's dreams. That would be great. I would love that. Okay, so this is what pages 122 and 123 should look like. It is your focusing question task evidence organizer. Get back to the video.
Pause here to take a stretch break and just hit play when you're ready to continue. I'd like you to look closely as we revisit these 2 very significant or important historical photographs. When you look at both photographs, how are these photographs different? Pause here to study or analyze these photographs closely, then share your thinking with a learning partner or share it with Jackson. Just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so I see several things that are different about these 2 photographs, okay? So the first one is in this photograph, Ruby Bridges, she's in a city, like there's a building behind her. She's in a town. In this photograph, you can tell that they are out in a field. There's countryside, there's land, there's open sky. There are no buildings in this photograph. In this photograph, Ruby is a child. And in this photograph, most of the protesters that you can see are adults. Also in this photograph, we can see their faces. Even the men who are in the building, we can see their faces. It's zoomed in, it's up close enough that we can see them. We can't see the facial features of the people in the Caracas picture. They're too far away. And the last thing that I noticed that's different is in this one, we're just getting an example of Ruby's experience. This is giving us the experience of all of these people. So that is another really big difference.
Now I want you to think. I want you to think about what these photographs have in common. How are they similar or the same in some ways? Pause here to study the photographs closely. Remember, look from top to bottom, from middle to the outer edges. Really examine them like an historian. Then chat with a learning partner or share what you notice with Jackson. Pause here to analyze the photographs and to chat, and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so there are several things that are they have in common. The most noticeable one is that they're both black and white photos. There's no color. And also that they're both from the 1960s in that time frame. Both of the photographs show people that are determined and are very serious and focused on their goal. Even if Ruby's goal is just to make it down those stairs without being hurt, that was her goal. She's very serious about it. Both of the protesters and Ruby, they're all facing danger, and they all had to be brave to face the danger. And then both photographs show that people are standing up to injustice and they are taking action against it.
Both of these photographs were taken by photojournalists. A photojournalist is a photographer who documents the news, and news often includes important events. I'd like to invite you to stop and jot in your journal to answer this question. Why do you think the photograph by James Corrales has become so popular? There's also a sentence starter that you could choose to use to begin your entry in your journal. The photograph became popular because. Pause here to work and just hit play when you're ready to wrap up our video lesson.
Okay, so what I do want you to write on page 124, we're not going to put the whole question. We're just going to put the sentence starter, okay? So you're going to put stop and jot, and I want you to write the sentence starter. The photograph became popular because, and then I want you to tell me why you think the photograph became so popular. So that's what you're going to write. We're on page 124. Okay. So go ahead and answer that question. So you can push pause, answer the question, and then push play when you are ready to finish up. So there are several reasons why this photo could have become so popular. And the most common one that I would think would be because it captures the emotion of an important event in American history. It shows how people were really strong together when they were facing the danger of injustice and hatred. And there's a lot behind this photograph that we've not been able to talk about yet. And I'm hoping that tomorrow on Friday, when we have a shorter lesson, I'll be able to show you a video about this photograph. And you'll understand more about why it was so dangerous for them. The photograph represents the power of the civil rights movement and how strong the country came together to fight this. So those are some reasons why it could have become popular. Well, let's finish up our lesson, Miss Isabella.
What was Dr. King's dream for the world? Share your learning with others. Make their knowledge grow. And I will see you again soon, my friends.
Okay, so that is the end of the video lesson. Remember, you have 3 pages to get done in today's journal. Page 122, 123, which we did in class, so you should be done with it. And then you were supposed to answer the question on page 124 in class. So you are going to take photos of those 3 pages and upload them into the classroom for me today. And that's about it. So I will see you guys later. Have fun.